This is episode 1 of what's going to be a legacy video. A legacy video is somebody, me, answering questions from an interviewer about my life story. And when I finish this first episode, I will endeavour to save it and file it and eventually put it on my YouTube page. So the first question from my interviewer is, why are you doing this? So my answer to that is, it's easier than writing it, as I've tried to do. It's laborious on a Word document, and you forget where you are and you find yourself repeating, which could well happen on this, but at least I'll have the ability to review from previous episodes. So that's what it's going to be. So back to the interview. So Peter, when did this all start? When did your life start? When did it happen? And where? Okay. So in answer to your question, my life started on, I think it was early morning, August the 5th, in University College Hospital in London on the 5th of August 1940. I was a big child, I believe, from my mother's answers. I think I was 12 pounds. I was very, very big. And everything went well. I think my mum was in hospital for a few days because she wasn't supposed to have babies because she'd only just got over tuberculosis, and it was considered a bit dangerous for the offspring contracting it from the mother. But after a while she was allowed to continue with the pregnancy. She had me. During my short stay there, I think after about one day, we had a visit from Edwina Mountbatten, Lady Mountbatten. She came to, I think it was a press call of some sort. The war was well underway. We were being bombed quite a lot. And she just decided to come and have a photo opportunity. So it was a maternity unit. So naturally she asked to, could she see the newborn babies? And she said, that's a big one, can I hold him? And which was me. So I got held by Lady Mountbatten. Yeah. From what I've heard, I was sick and peed on her all at the same time. And I was immediately handed back to one of the nurses, who immediately handed me back to my mum. And that was my first contact with celebrity. Anyway, we came out of hospital. We went home to North London, to Finchley. We had a flat in an old mansion in North Finchley, in Bow Lane. And that's where my story began, and I started to recollect things. Memories are starting to kick in a little bit, not the first 12 months. Around about 1941, the Blitz was in, it was a really noisy time, I remember that, but it didn't mean anything to me. It was like an adventure. I spent a great deal of time in the cellar of this old mansion, which was turned into a workshop by the neighbour, whose name was Nunky Follis. It's French. So he was mon oncle Follis, and his wife was the French version of that, which I used to know. Yeah, it'll come to me later. Anyway, I was in the cellar. I started to remember things then, because I liked where I had to sleep, which was an army-style double bunk, but it was all mine. And so that double bunk became a tank, or a tractor, or even an aeroplane. That double bunk became anything I wanted to imagine it was. So I quite enjoyed that time. I wasn't really out and about much. I think I was getting on for 2 years old. Vague memories, very slight memories. I remember Nunky Follis used to have a shoe repair area down there where he used to repair shoes. And I remember the smell of the place. It was dry. Had not an unpleasant smell, but it felt like home to me because it was home to me. And it seems Nunky Follis and my dad were intrigued by the fact the landlord had half of this whole mansion and my parents' half had been divided into 3 or 4 flats. And being as we were in the basement, the wall on one side was the wall of the landlord's half, who was quite well off. His name was Cloutman. He was a QC and he'd won the VC in the First World War, if you want to look him up. Mr. Cloutman. It was assumed, I didn't know this at the time, but I was going to get used. It was assumed that he had a wine cellar, which was just the other side of the wall. So Nunky Follis, with the tools that he had in hand, this is what I was told, started to chip away one of the bricks a foot or 2 up, so I didn't want it to collapse. Loosened the brick, with a torch he shone through the hole, and he saw racks of wine bottles. So he loosened a few other bricks, and they tried to reach through, but they couldn't reach. And it seems they both turned and looked at little me, and they must have thought, yes, we'll use him. So, I don't remember this, but this is what I was told. They managed to get me through this hole with promises of rewards and all sorts, and be a good boy, stop crying, don't be silly, it's an adventure. But I remember the smell, and I remember seeing nothing really, apart from glimpses of things from time to time. But all I could see was loads and loads of bottles and cobwebs and stuff all over the place. And I remember my dad or Nunky Follis saying, bring us a bottle, bring us a bottle. And no, I don't know why, but I didn't want to. And I refused. And eventually, after I don't know how long, they dragged me back through this little hole in the wall. And I had a feeling of not being liked for a little while, because I didn't bring them a bottle. They were frightened to open the hole bigger in case they caused a collapse. Anyway, it was round about then that the main blitz had started to calm down a bit. It was late 42, I think. And I was getting on for 3 years old. And I started to wander up the driveway we had out to the main road, which was Bow Lane. It wasn't a road really, it was a lane. But I was intrigued by what I found in the mornings, because the previous night there was still bombing attacks taking place, but the pavement and the road and the curbs were full of bits of metal. It was called shrapnel. And shrapnel was the remains of the shells we fired up in the air. And it came down in bits and actually did quite a few injuries, I heard later. So me and the neighbour's son, who was a bit older than me, his name was Brian Nelson, and we became companions. And we used to hang around together a lot and collect shrapnel and competition who could find the best bit of shrapnel. Ryan swore he'd found a warm piece, so it must have been really fresh, but I don't believe that. And so that was 43. It was a good time. I started to have more memories of that time, because I was out and about mixing with Brian. I had an enormous amount of freedom because there was no threats out there, was no nasty men, no traffic, nothing. It was just playtime for a couple of 3 or 4 year olds. Anyway, I enjoyed the company because the Follises had, also my mum had family in the army and the navy, and the Follises had sons in the Air Force, and there was a lot of company, all in uniform. It was party time. There was a piano being played, a lot of singing and dancing, lots of treats for me, sweets and all sorts of stuff. And it was quite a good time in my memory. I didn't realise how hard it was for the grown-ups, obviously. And so that was the beginning. There's lots of more stories from that time, not so much from my memories, but from what I've been told. So I think I'll close this one now. It's gone on quite a long time. Amazingly how quickly it passes. So I'm going to see if I can save this and file it away for posterity. And I shall continue the story on the next episode, which will be episode 2. So good night.